Wonder about the future and how you'll be working and learning? Welcome to You in 2042, the future of work, with your host, Danielle Wallace.
Hello and welcome to You in 2042, the future of work. Joining me today is Keith Keating.
I'm Keith Keating. Well, technically, Dr. Keith Keating, which is still a little weird for me to have achieved it and being able to say that. I am a chief learning officer for a large mortgage company, and I am also a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and an author of the upcoming book, The Trusted Learning Advisor.
The Trusted Learning Advisor, that sounds fun because there's been so much change in the world. And when we think about learning and development's role with business leaders, it's interesting to see in contrast that we haven't seen so much change in the past few decades. It feels like we're still order takers, right? And Keith, how can we be this trusted advisor, or what do you think is to come? What is the role then of the learning and development professional in 2042 if we continue on this path that we're on?
I'm going to start with the last question first. So what's the role in 2042 of the L&D professional if we continue on the same path that we are on today? Is this: we're not going to exist. Our role will not be here in, 19 years from now, if we continue being order takers, because there is no need for a human order taker at that point. AI is absolutely transforming all aspects of the way that we work, we as humans, and L&D is part of that change and part of that impact, even though we're not necessarily seeing that or being talked about today. So kind of to take a step back, largely our industry is still order takers. Now, we started as order takers historically. So if you go back to the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution, someone had to train those workers on what to do, how to move those widgets. So management would decide what needed to happen. They would tell the trainer, this is what you need to go train them on, and the trainer would execute that order. And that essentially was the beginning mindset and has stayed in our DNA since then. Now, we've evolved some over the years. I don't want to not acknowledge that aspect. But our business partners and our stakeholders still see us as order takers. For some reason, L&D is not a respected function in the organization. You know, if you go to IT and you try to tell IT what to do, give them an order, they're not going to execute that order. They're going to say, hey, this is our IT policy. This is this is that. This is what we're going to do. We've got these business units that have that respect, but L&D is one of them that has not garnered that respect. And the book that I have, The Trusted Learning Advisor, is a manifesto, is a guide to evolving specifically from being order takers. And there's two aspects to being an order taker. There's being treated like an order taker, and then there's behaving like an order taker. And today, both of those exist. Now, fast forward to 2042, not even 2042, I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, you look at something like ChatGPT as a tool. It does a really good job at creating training programs, at creating learning and development content for us. In less than 30 seconds, I can have an outline as well as the content to a leadership program or a sales program. I can then export that to another platform. It creates the PowerPoint slides. I can export that to another platform that creates the e-learning content. So in about 5 minutes, I can have a piece of digital content that needed very little human intervention. That is a fact that is going to continue to get better. Our business partners may not yet recognize this, but pretty soon they're going to. And if we are not proactively understanding how these tools work, understanding how these tools are going to benefit us, our business partners are going to. And then they're going to ask this question, well, wow, if I can do this, why do I need L&D? And it's a really good question that they're asking. And that is an important question that we've got to keep in our back of our mind at this point moving forward. Why does our business need L&D? And it can't be this biased idea of, well, because they need learning. Well, there's a tool now. There is a true threat that can provide some of those exact same learning tools that we took weeks and weeks and weeks to create. Is it better than what we created? Not necessarily, but it's good. And sometimes good enough is for our business. So the answer to your question is we need to evolve to being trusted learning advisors to make sure that we have demonstrated our value and our purpose so that we're here in those 19 years.
And it's so true because the business unit can so easily look to ChatGPT as that ultimate order taker. Great.
Mhm.
I want you to do this. You create it. And to your point, if we as learning and development professionals aren't staying abreast, we easily become circumvented. So we inadvertently eliminate our own role.
And what's great about ChatGPT? It doesn't push back. When you tell ChatGPT to create a training, it doesn't say, oh, I need 6 weeks to do a needs analysis. I need to understand this. I need to understand that. It doesn't do any of those things that we do. And so we have to be more consultative. We have to work harder on building our relationships. We have to be a strategic business partner embedded in the business. But most importantly, we have to be proactive. We've got to be understanding these tools because there is no future that exists without AI. Right now, we're in almost like the dawn of when the internet became available to the masses. AI has been around for 60, 70 years, but it wasn't available to everyone at any moment. It is now. And so we have to become experts on how to leverage these tools to support us before someone else does and figures out, I may not actually need them. Now, we do a lot more than just what ChatGPT spits out. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at an organization that exists to make money, and they're looking at where can we cut costs, and we're acting as order takers, we're not demonstrating our value proposition, we're not strategic business partners, we're not those trusted advisors, we're one of the ones where they could say, yeah, we could cut that. Because to be honest, I know today I could already reduce my team by using just ChatGPT and other AI tools. So if I know that as the learning leaders, it's not long until our business partners start to recognize that as well. So we've got to figure out to pivot, to evolve, what do our business partners need so that we can continue to demonstrate our value?
And to your point, I imagine in many organizations, these discussions are already having, not with learning and development there. There already is this discussion about this is how we'll streamline, this is how we'll train our workforce with this new system without any idea that it is eliminating learning and development because they're not even in that picture. To your point, not at the table to even be that trusted advisor.
Yep. And there's a lot of people that have this idea of if I could just get a seat at the table, I could have part of those conversations and make an impact. And my philosophy is forget trying to sit at somebody else's table, build your own table and invite them to sit with you. So, what that looks like in practice, let's take AI specifically, understand it, understand how to use it, how it's going to benefit not only your organization, L&D, but other organizations. Start to create stories around it, become masterful in it, and then take that discussion on a roadshow. There are a lot of organizations that have not really defined how AI is going to impact it there. So everyone's talking about it, and every leader is saying, hey, figure out how we can make more money, how we can reduce our headcount, how it can make us more efficient and more effective. So everyone out there is trying to figure it out. Don't sit on the side and let someone else in your organization figure it out. You figure it out now and start to be the first one to have those conversations so that you can build that table, or if you can't build the table, you can get a seat at someone else's to make sure that you have a voice in this discussion, because L&D should absolutely be a part of this. We may not necessarily be the ones driving the AI conversation, but you know what? Why not? Why can't we be the first ones? I'll tell you, in one of the companies I'm consulting with, I am the first one from an L&D perspective to be driving these conversations. So don't just think that, oh, somebody else is going to handle it, because it may not have a good outcome for you. Figure out how you can also be a part of it, if not lead it.
It's a way to help us as an industry or even as an individual chart one's own trajectory to ensure then that you're a part of that future.
Absolutely. Because as you said, those conversations are happening or are about to happen. And if we're not part of that conversation or we're not driving that conversation, we're going to be left out. And we've been left out for years and years and years. But this is really the one time that it is absolutely critical to our future that we not be left out. Because before, the only threat that we really had was another vendor. Or maybe somebody else in the business is like a subject matter expert, and so yeah, we throw them into training. But now there's something bigger than us that's cheaper and again doesn't push back, can work 24 hours a day, and can work faster than we can. So we have to figure out, how do we harness that power so that we can use it to our advantage?
And is there ways that we can not only harness that power to our advantage, but couple it with what you'd mentioned earlier about building relationships or these other human skills that help us drive value and being able to demonstrate back to the business that we're driving value?
Absolutely. Think not just about L&D, and that's our function, if you will, but can be much bigger than that. So if you understand your business partners specifically, you could start to look at how might AI impact them and put together a couple of use cases and share that with your business partners so that they can see that you're thinking a bit differently, so they can see that you understand their business. And you have to make sure that it's very prescriptive and very intentional, and not just, oh, I sat down and I used ChatGPT for the business and this is what it came up with. They've already done that. But think broader than that. For example, you could conduct qualitative research with the frontline workers in a business to identify business problems that they have. Again, doesn't have to be specific to L&D. Don't limit yourself. We should be a linchpin trying to solve organizational problems. So once you've figured out what are a couple of problems that are happening on the front line, go to ChatGPT, spend a lot of time figuring out how AI might be able to solve those problems. Additionally, use research. World Economic Forum, McKinsey Global Institute, Deloitte. Find out what kind of shifts are happening in the next 3 to 5 years for your industry, for your business unit, for the skills within that group. Package up that data and that research and make that part of your discussion with your business partners so that they can see that you really do understand their business. The way that we're really going to change their mindset from seeing us as order takers is when they see us as part of their business, not as a external function, which L&D often operates as. We should be embedded and across every business unit in the organization so that we can see holistically to try and connect those dots.
That's a great rallying cry with some practical tips to up our game and not be subjecting ourselves to being the learning and development group within the organization that is not willing or not being proactive to actually help drive the total business forward. What do you think the
Absolutely.
future holds for this workforce then if we are doing that? So we are supporting it. We are taking these practical tips that you're saying. What do you think the future holds then for the workforce that we're supporting?
It's going to be a tumultuous, I would say, 5 years or so for the workforce in general. So the way that we work is literally shifting every single day right now. It's transforming faster than we could have ever expected because of AI. And we haven't even hit the apex yet. We're not seeing a lot of these shifts yet in organizations, but we're seeing it in gig workers, from copyright editors to writers to marketing people. ChatGPT is already replacing their jobs. And this is a fact. Your organization is going to be impacted by AI and people are going to lose their jobs. Technology cuts jobs, changes jobs, and it creates new jobs. So we, the L&D function, have to keep that in mind. What's going to happen first is jobs are going to be impacted and they're going to change or they're going to be reduced. This is our rallying cry, to borrow from your phrase, your terminology, to stand up and be thinking about that right now. And I'm not sure that our industry is. So I'll tell you, one of the companies I consult with, I know today that we are going to cut 30% of our workforce in the next 2 years. I already know that. AI can do their jobs faster and better, and why wouldn't the company do that? So if I know today that these people are going to lose their jobs, it is my responsibility, it is our responsibility to help them plan now. We can help them build new skills. So second skill, upskill, reskill. It is truly a skills revolution. And we are the only ones that are going to be thinking about and advocating for those people, because there's no one else in the company that's thinking about them. That's literally our job. Is we have frontline workers. How do we support them? We tend to be reactive and we support them with whatever orders we kind of receive for that moment. But now we have to take a step back and we have to look at the holistic future view. And the future view is a lot of people are going to lose that specific job. Doesn't mean there's not going to be new jobs created. There is, but there is a delay until that happens. For example, AI might create new roles in my company, but we got to figure that out first. But what I do know is I can do without 20, 30% people today. So it might be 3 or 4 years before I figure out those new roles. So I can't just sit on the sidelines and let these people be made redundant. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking at how can I cross-skill them? How can I upskill them? What might our business be shifting to in the next couple of years that we can help plan for right now? We tend to not look past the next quarter or 2 quarters, especially for public companies, but we've got to be looking 2, 3 years in the future at this point to protect our workforce. And additional to that, if you know there is no job for those individuals, I believe it's our responsibility to humanely start to plant those seeds, because you don't think those people aren't already living in fear and aren't aware, hey, you know what? AI actually can do this better. Like, do I even have a job? If you know that in a couple of years that might shift, be vocal about that. Start helping them build those skills, look for transitions internally, start to help them transition externally. But the answer to your question is, what does the future hold for the workforce that we support? The future can be strong, it can be bright for everyone if we invest the time today to help identify those roles and skills that are going to be at risk so that we can help reskill or identify transferable skills for that talent. Because the last thing that we want is people living in fear for the future of their job.
And that gives a great area that we as learning and development professionals can build our own table and invite others to it to be forward thinking, to ensure we are future planning, upskilling. Really interesting practical examples that you've shared. Where can people learn more about these ideas and in particular more about being a trusted learning advisor?
I would say check out the book, The Trusted Learning Advisor. You can, of course, get it on Amazon or any other digital platform. There is a website, thetrustedlearningadvisor.com. It is chock full of practical and actionable strategies that you can begin to execute. It's not a thought leader book. I will say that The Trusted Learning Advisor is a mindset, but it was very important to me to make sure that it is a tool that filled with tools that you can begin to use immediately, regardless of your role, your tenure. If you're thinking, well, I'm not a leader in the organization, I'm just an individual contributor, doesn't matter. You can be a trusted learning advisor with your mindset. You can build relationships, build trust, you can be credible. So answer your question, check out The Trusted Learning Advisor.
And it's hot off the press now, just released. So do encourage everybody to find it at trustedlearningadvisor.com, where you can actually build upon some of the practical examples Keith shared today with even more amazing examples. Keith, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an interesting and informative, practical conversation.
My pleasure. I appreciate that you're conducting this types of discussions for 2042.
Thank you
because
for
we
being
really
a
do
part
need
of
to
the
be
future.
thinking
Subscribe now to
the long
stay current.
game, particularly about L&D, about talent development, so that we can get past this next day immediate reactive state and be a bit more proactive.
Now's our time. Now's the time to take
Yes.
action.